when you realize that knowing more hasn't made things clearer. You've read the books, you've listened to the advice, you've gathered information from everywhere, and yet your decisions still feel heavy. Your emotions still pull you in the wrong direction, and your life feels harder than it should be. That's usually the moment when people don't need more knowledge. They need wisdom. Wisdom is different. Wisdom doesn't rush. It doesn't shout. It doesn't try to impress. Wisdom quietly shapes how you think, how you speak, and how you act when no one is watching. And some of the clearest, most enduring insights into human behavior were written long before modern psychology, productivity systems, or motivational trends ever existed. The Book of Proverbs is not about religion in the way many people assume. It is a collection of observations about human nature, discipline, speech, pride, patience, relationships, and the long-term consequences of everyday choices. It speaks to the same struggles people face today: impulsive decisions, uncontrolled emotions, broken trust, wasted potential, and the quiet regret that comes from repeating the same mistakes. What makes these lessons timeless is not their age, but their accuracy. Human nature hasn't changed as much as we like to think. We still struggle with ego. We still speak too quickly and listen too little. We still chase shortcuts and ignore the value of steady effort. And we still underestimate how small, repeated decisions shape the direction of an entire life. This audiobook is not here to lecture you or tell you how to live. It is here to slow you down, to give you space to reflect, and to help you notice patterns in your own thinking and behavior that may have gone unchallenged for years. Each lesson you'll hear is practical, grounded, and deeply human. These are principles meant to be lived, not admired from a distance. You don't need to apply everything at once. Wisdom doesn't work that way. Real change happens when a single insight settles into your mind and begins to guide your choices quietly and consistently. One better response, one calmer decision, one moment where you choose patience over impulse. Over time, those moments add up. As you listen, don't ask yourself how this applies to other people. Ask how it applies to you, to your work, to your relationships, to the way you handle pressure, conflict, and uncertainty. Wisdom becomes powerful when it moves from thought into action. These lessons are not about perfection, they are about alignment. Alignment between what you believe matters and how you actually live each day. When your actions match your values, life becomes simpler, even when it is not easy. You stop fighting yourself. You stop explaining your choices. You begin to trust your own judgment again. That quiet confidence is one of the greatest rewards wisdom offers. Many people are not broken. They are simply unaligned, distracted, and tired of carrying lessons they never truly absorbed or practiced consistently over time. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by life, stuck in familiar cycles, or unsure which direction to take next, this audiobook is for you. And if someone you care about is struggling, feeling lost, or quietly searching for guidance, share this video with them. You never know when a single lesson might help someone begin improving their life today. Chapter 1. Wisdom begins with humility, not intelligence. Many people grow up believing that intelligence is the highest advantage a person can have. If you think fast, speak well, and understand complex ideas, you're told you'll be ahead in life. And for a while, that can feel true. Intelligence opens doors, it earns praise, it creates a sense of control. But sooner or later, life reveals a quiet truth that intelligence alone cannot protect you from poor decisions, emotional blindness, or repeated mistakes. Wisdom does not begin where intelligence ends. It begins where humility starts. Humility is often misunderstood. People confuse it with insecurity or weakness, as if being humble means doubting yourself or minimizing your abilities. Proverbs presents a very different picture. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking clearly about yourself. It is the awareness that no matter how sharp your mind is, your perspective is always incomplete. Emotions distort judgment. Ego narrows vision. Past success creates blind spots. The humble person accepts these limits without shame. Intelligence says, "I know." Humility asks, "What am I missing?" That single difference changes how a person moves through life. The intelligent person may win arguments. The humble person learns from them. The intelligent person often speaks first. The humble person listens longer. Over time, the second person quietly becomes wiser, not because they started smarter, but because they stayed teachable. Proverbs consistently warns about pride because pride shuts down growth without announcing itself. Pride doesn't usually appear as arrogance at first. It often shows up as certainty, the feeling that you already understand how things work, the assumption that your experience is enough, the belief that advice is unnecessary because you've been through this before. Pride builds a closed system where nothing new can enter. Once that system closes, wisdom cannot develop. You can see this pattern everywhere. In relationships where one person refuses to admit fault. In workplaces where talented people stop improving because feedback feels insulting. In personal lives where repeated mistakes are blamed on circumstances instead of examined honestly. Intelligence may explain behavior, but humility is what corrects it. Wisdom requires the courage to pause, to slow down when emotions surge, to resist the instinct to defend your image. Proverbs teaches that wisdom begins when a person is willing to be corrected, not publicly, but internally. That willingness creates space for growth long before outcomes change. A humble person is not passive, they are deliberate. They do not rush to prove themselves because they are not threatened by questions. They understand that being wrong is not a failure. Refusing to learn is. This mindset makes wisdom durable. It allows a person to adapt instead of collapse when reality challenges their assumptions. Modern culture rarely rewards this approach. Everything moves fast. Strong opinions gain attention. Confidence is celebrated even when it's empty. People are encouraged to project certainty at all times. In that environment, humility can look like hesitation. Silence can look like weakness. Listening can look like indecision. But Proverbs takes a longer view. Confidence without humility is fragile. It depends on constant validation. The moment it's challenged, it becomes defensive or aggressive. Humility-based wisdom, on the other hand, is steady. It does not need to dominate conversations. It does not panic under pressure. It does not crumble when corrected. Its strength comes from understanding, not performance. This is why truly wise people often appear calm. They don't react impulsively. They don't escalate conflicts unnecessarily. They don't feel compelled to respond to every challenge. Their confidence is internal. It comes from knowing they are still learning and growing, not from believing they have already arrived. Humility also transforms how mistakes are handled. Without humility, mistakes become threats to identity. People hide them, justify them, or to repeat them unconsciously. With humility, mistakes become teachers. They are examined without self-hatred and corrected without drama. This process quietly builds judgment over time. Proverbs does not suggest that intelligence is unimportant. It simply refuses to place it at the center. Intelligence is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used well or poorly. Without humility, intelligence sharpens excuses. It rationalizes bad behavior. It creates clever justifications for unwise choices. With humility, intelligence becomes constructive. It helps analyze patterns, foresee consequences, and refine decisions. The foundation that matters. Humility also reshapes relationships. People feel safe around someone who listens without preparing a rebuttal, who admits when they are wrong, who doesn't weaponize intelligence to feel superior. Trust grows in those environments. Conversations deepen, conflict de-escalates. Wisdom shows up not as dominance, but as stability. The absence of humility does the opposite. It turns disagreement into personal attacks. It turns feedback into resentment. It turns growth into resistance. Over time, people distance themselves, not because the person lacks intelligence, but because they lack openness. If you want wisdom to shape your life, it must start internally. Notice when your ego tightens. Notice when being right matters more than understanding. Notice when defensiveness appears before curiosity. Those moments are invitations, not failures. They are chances to choose humility over pride. Becoming humble does not mean doubting your worth. It means valuing growth more than image. It means choosing learning over proving. It means allowing life to correct you gently instead of forcing it to correct you harshly. Wisdom begins the moment you stop protecting who you think you are and start investing in who you are becoming. Chapter 2. Your words reveal and shape your destiny. Few things feel as ordinary as speaking. Words come out of us constantly, often without thought, without intention, without awareness of their impact. And because speaking feels effortless, most people underestimate its power. Proverbs does not make that mistake. Again and again, it points to words as one of the clearest windows into a person's inner life and one of the strongest forces shaping the direction of that life. Your words do more than communicate information. They reveal what rules you. They expose your emotional state. They signal your values. And over time, they quietly shape your reality. People often say, "I didn't mean it," after speaking carelessly. But Proverbs suggests something more honest. Words usually reveal what lives beneath the surface. Not every thought needs to be spoken, but what is spoken rarely appears by accident. Under pressure, fatigue, anger, or excitement, words spill out unfiltered. In those moments, they tell the truth about what has been forming inside you all along. This is why wise people pay attention not only to what they say, but to when and how they say it. Proverbs teaches that restraint in speech is not silence for its own sake. It is control. The ability to pause before reacting. The ability to allow a moment to pass without filling it. The ability to choose words intentionally instead of using them as emotional release. Many people speak to feel lighter, not realizing they are handing their weight to others and damaging trust in the process. Words spoken in anger feel powerful in the moment, but they create long shadows. They linger in memory. They shape how others see you. They redefine relationships. An apology can soften the damage, but it rarely erases it completely. Wisdom recognizes this cost before speaking, not after. Proverbs also makes a subtle distinction between speaking often and speaking well. Volume does not equal value. Quick responses do not equal insight. The person who speaks constantly is not necessarily confident. Often, they are uncomfortable with silence. Silence forces reflection. It exposes uncertainty. That discomfort drives many people to fill space with noise. The wise person is not afraid of silence. They understand that listening is an active skill, not a passive one. Listening gathers information. It reveals motivations. It uncovers what others care about, and it prevents unnecessary conflict. Many arguments escalate not because of disagreement, but because no one paused long enough to understand. Words also shape identity. What you repeatedly say about yourself becomes the framework through which you interpret life. If your language is consistently harsh, self-critical, or cynical, it programs your mind toward limitation. If your words are thoughtful, measured, and aligned with reality, they build internal stability. Proverbs treat speech as both external communication and internal conditioning. This does not mean pretending or using empty positivity. Wisdom values truth, not performance. Speaking wisely means choosing accuracy over exaggeration, clarity over drama, and restraint over impulse. It means resisting the urge to use words as weapons or shields. In relationships, speech reveals emotional maturity. People who lash out verbally often believe they are being honest. But honesty without control is not wisdom. It is emotional exposure without responsibility. Proverbs warns that reckless words wound like a blade, while measured speech heals. Not because it avoids truth, but because it delivers truth without destruction. The workplace offers constant evidence of this principle. Careers rise and fall not only on competence, but on communication. A single careless comment can damage trust built over years. A consistent pattern of thoughtful speech can create influence without authority. People remember how you made them feel long after they forget what you accomplished. Wisdom also knows when not to speak. There are moments when silence preserves dignity, de-escalates conflict, and protects clarity. Not every provocation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding needs immediate correction. And the wise person understands timing. They know that a delayed response is often stronger than a reactive one. This restraint is difficult because it goes against instinct. Instinct demands expression. Wisdom demands discernment. Proverbs teaches that self-control over speech reflects self-control over life. If words run unchecked, emotions usually do too. Over time, patterns of speech compound. Encouraging words strengthen bonds. Consistent negativity erodes them. Thoughtless humor can normalize disrespect. Careful language builds respect without demanding it. None of this happens overnight. It accumulates quietly, shaping reputation and destiny in ways people rarely notice until consequences appear. Your words are not neutral. They are directional. They move relationships forward or backward. They create peace or tension. They signal wisdom or immaturity. And because speaking is so easy, it becomes one of the most revealing measures of character. Proverbs does not tell you to speak less because silence is virtuous. It teaches you to speak wisely because words carry weight. When you learn to treat speech as a tool rather than a reflex, your life begins to stabilize. Conflicts soften. Decisions improve. Trust grows. Wisdom speaks when needed, listens when necessary, and remains silent when restraint serves a higher purpose. Over time, that discipline shapes not only how others experience you, but how you experience yourself. Chapter 3. Self-control is stronger than raw power. Modern culture admires strength that is loud, fast, and visible. Power is often measured by dominance, speed, and the ability to impose will on others. But Proverbs offers a quieter, more unsettling truth. The person who controls themselves is stronger than the one who conquers external forces. Not because self-control looks impressive, but because it determines whether strength builds or destroys. Self-control is not about suppressing emotion or denying desire. It is about mastery. It is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. Anger, fear, ambition, pleasure, and urgency are not enemies. They become dangerous only when they take command. Most damage in life does not come from lack of ability. It comes from moments where emotion overrules judgment, and a harsh reaction that breaks trust, an impulsive decision that costs years, a craving that slowly reshapes priorities. These moments rarely feel dramatic while they happen. They feel justified. Proverbs warns that this is exactly why they are so dangerous. Raw power reacts. Self-control responds. The difference matters. Reaction is immediate and emotional. Response is delayed and intentional. Reaction seeks relief. Response seeks alignment. When people lack self-control, life becomes a series of emotional emergencies. Every frustration demands expression. Every desire demands satisfaction. Every insult demands retaliation. Over time, this pattern exhausts both the person and everyone around them. Proverbs consistently links wisdom with restraint. Not restraint born of fear, but restraint born of clarity. The wise person understands that emotions are temporary, but consequences are not. They recognize that the urge to act is not the same as the need to act. That awareness creates space between impulse and action, and that space is where freedom lives. Anger is one of the clearest examples. Anger itself is not condemned. It signals perceived injustice or threat. But unmanaged anger narrows perception. It reduces complex situations into simple enemies. In that state, people say things they cannot unsay and make decisions they would never make calmly. Proverbs teaches that slow anger reflects strength because it shows command over inner storms. The same principle applies to desire. Desire is a powerful motivator. It fuels ambition, creativity, and connection. But when desire leads without restraint, it becomes appetite. Appetite does not negotiate. It demands. It pulls attention away from long-term values toward immediate gratification. Proverbs warns that unchecked desire trades tomorrow for today, often without noticing the exchange. Self-control protects the future self. This is why self-control is described as greater than physical conquest. Conquering others requires force. Conquering oneself requires awareness, patience, and discipline. It is invisible work. No applause follows it. But its effects compound over time. A person who consistently governs their impulses builds credibility with themselves. They begin to trust their own decisions. That trust creates stability. Without self-control, even success becomes dangerous. Power without restraint amplifies flaws. Money without discipline magnifies insecurity. The authority without self-control invites abuse. Proverbs does not romanticize power. It insists that inner governance must precede outer influence. In daily life, self-control shows up in small, uncelebrated choices. Choosing not to respond immediately to provocation. Choosing to pause before sending a message. Choosing to wait when impatience rises. These moments feel insignificant, but they shape character quietly. Over time, they rewire behavior. Many people assume self-control means constant struggle. In reality, it becomes easier with practice. Each pause strengthens awareness. Each deliberate choice weakens impulsive patterns. Wisdom does not eliminate emotion. It trains leadership over emotion. Self-control also reshapes how others experience you. People feel safe around someone who does not explode under pressure. Trust grows with those who remain steady in conflict. Leadership emerges not from intensity, but from consistency. Proverbs implies that reliability is a form of power more durable than force. The absence of self-control creates instability. Relationships become unpredictable. Decisions feel reactive. Regret accumulates quietly. People begin managing damage instead of building direction. None of this happens because someone is unintelligent. It happens because intelligence without restraint serves impulse. Self-control is not about perfection. Everyone slips. Everyone reacts poorly at times. Wisdom lies in awareness, not flawlessness. The wise person notices patterns. They recognize triggers. They learn when to step back. Over time, they shorten the distance between impulse and correction. Proverbs does not promise that self-control will make life easy. It promises that it will make life coherent. When inner impulses align with values, decisions feel cleaner. Even difficult choices carry less internal conflict. You stop fighting yourself. This alignment brings quiet confidence. Not the confidence of dominance, but the confidence of self-trust. You know you can feel deeply without losing direction. You know you can face pressure without collapsing into reaction. That knowledge is strength. Raw power seeks control over others. Wisdom seeks control over self. One exhausts energy, the other preserves it. One creates fear, the other creates respect. Over time, only one leads to a life that is stable, grounded, and genuinely free. Self-control is not restraint for its own sake. It is protection. Protection of character, protection of relationships, protection of the future you are building, one deliberate choice at a time. Chapter 4. Discipline is the quiet architect of freedom. Discipline rarely feels attractive at first. It doesn't promise excitement, applause, or immediate reward. In fact, it often feels like the opposite of freedom. It asks you to limit yourself, to repeat actions when motivation is low, and to choose what is necessary over what is comfortable. Because of this, many people assume discipline is a burden imposed on life. Proverbs reveals a deeper truth. Discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is the structure that makes freedom possible. A life without discipline may feel open and flexible in the beginning. There are no strict routines, no boundaries, no resistance to impulse. But over time, that openness becomes disorder. Decisions pile up. Responsibilities are delayed. Small problems grow quietly into large ones. What once felt like freedom turns into constant reaction. Proverbs speaks plainly about this pattern because it understands how easily humans drift when structure is absent. True freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want in the moment. It is the ability to live without being controlled by regret, chaos, or urgency. Discipline creates that ability slowly and quietly. One of the most overlooked areas where discipline shapes freedom is time. Time wasted does not feel painful in the moment. It feels neutral, even pleasant. But time carries consequences invisibly. Missed preparation shows up as stress later. Delayed effort shows up as limitation later. Proverbs contrasts diligence and laziness, not as moral judgments, but as paths with predictable outcomes. One builds margin, the other creates pressure. As discipline with time does not mean constant productivity or rigid schedules. It means intention. It means respecting time enough to decide how it will be used instead of letting it be consumed unconsciously. When time is structured, the mind becomes calmer. Fewer decisions feel urgent. Life feels less overwhelming because fewer things are left undone. Habits are another place where discipline works behind the scenes. Habits shape life more than goals ever do. Goals inspire, but habits carry you forward when inspiration fades. Proverbs emphasizes steady effort because it understands that consistency outperforms intensity. Doing something small and disciplined every day builds more than occasional bursts of motivation. Many people wait to feel ready before acting. Proverbs teaches the opposite order. Action creates readiness. Discipline creates momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Over time, this cycle replaces reliance on mood with reliance on structure. The disciplined person does not depend on motivation to move forward. They move forward because movement itself has become normal. Discipline also protects emotional health. When life lacks structure, emotions take control of decisions. Stress increases because everything feels reactive. Anxiety grows because nothing feels anchored. Discipline introduces predictability. Predictability reduces cognitive load. When certain actions are automatic, the mind has space to think clearly instead of constantly deciding what to do next. This is why disciplined people often appear calm under pressure. Not because they face fewer problems, but because fewer problems feel like emergencies. They have systems that absorb stress. Proverbs highlights this steadiness as a sign of wisdom, not because it looks impressive, but because it prevents collapse. Financial discipline offers a clear illustration of this principle. Without structure, money decisions become emotional. Spending follows impulse. Saving feels restrictive. Over time, this creates dependence and anxiety. Discipline with finances may feel limiting at first, but it purchases peace later. It allows choices to be made thoughtfully instead of desperately. Proverbs frames financial discipline as foresight, not fear. The same pattern applies to physical and mental health. Without discipline, energy fluctuates wildly. Sleep becomes inconsistent. Health decisions become reactive. With discipline, the body stabilizes. Energy becomes reliable. Proverbs does not glorify extremes. It values balance built through consistency. Discipline also shapes relationships. Reliability builds trust. Following through communicates respect. Boundaries prevent resentment. Proverbs emphasizes faithfulness not as an ideal, but as a stabilizing force. People feel safe around those who are consistent. Inconsistency, even when unintentional, erodes connection over time. One reason people resist discipline is because they associate it with external control. Rules imposed by others. Pressure without meaning. Proverbs reframes discipline as self-respect. It is choosing to govern yourself rather than be governed by impulse, circumstance, or other people's expectations. Discipline is not about obedience to rules. It is about alignment with values. This alignment simplifies life. When standards are clear, decisions become easier. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop cycling through guilt and justification. Discipline removes unnecessary internal conflict. It creates a sense of order that frees mental energy for what matters. Importantly, discipline does not demand perfection. Proverbs does not describe flawless people. It describes directed people. Those who correct course when they drift, none those who do not normalize disorder. Discipline allows mistakes without letting them become habits. Over time, disciplined living produces an unexpected result: flexibility. When structure exists, adaptation becomes easier. When margins are built, surprises are manageable. When habits are stable, change does not feel threatening. Discipline creates room to breathe. Proverbs never promises that discipline will feel pleasant. It promises that it will be fruitful. Stability replaces chaos. Progress replaces stagnation. Confidence grows quietly as self-trust deepens. You begin to rely on yourself because you know you will act in alignment with your values, even when it is inconvenient. If life feels constantly overwhelming, the issue is often not lack of ability, intelligence, or opportunity. It is lack of structure. Non-discipline supplies that structure without noise or drama. It works silently, shaping days, habits, and decisions until freedom no longer feels fragile. Discipline is not a cage, it is a framework. The quiet architect that builds a life strong enough to hold responsibility, peace, and meaning over time. Chapter 5. Choose character or over short term. Gain, one of the most difficult lessons Proverbs teaches, is also one of the most uncomfortable. Not everything that benefits you immediately is good for you in the long run. Human nature is wired to favor speed, ease, and reward that arrives now. Wisdom, however, plays a longer game. It asks a harder question, not "What do I get today?" but "Who am I becoming because of this choice?" Short-term gain is seductive because it feels efficient. It promises relief, status, pleasure, or advantage without delay. Character, on the other hand, feels slow, invisible, often unrewarded in the moment. This is why so many people understand the value of character, but still abandon it under pressure. Proverbs does not romanticize this struggle. It confronts it directly. Our character is not built in moments of comfort. It is revealed and shaped when compromise looks easier than integrity. Proverbs repeatedly warns against dishonest gain, shortcuts, and manipulative advantage. Not because these choices always lead to immediate disaster, but because they quietly reshape the person making them. Each small compromise lowers the internal standard. Each rationalization makes the next one easier. Over time, what once felt wrong begins to feel normal. This is how people drift away from who they intended to be. Short-term gain rarely announces its full cost. It comes wrapped in logic. Just this once. Everyone does it. It's not that serious. I deserve this. These thoughts feel reasonable in isolation. Proverbs exposes the pattern behind them. Wisdom sees not just the action, but the trajectory it creates. A character operates on a different timeline. It does not always protect you from loss. It does not guarantee comfort, but it builds something far more durable. Trust. Trust in yourself. Trust from others. Trust that your decisions align with your values, even when no one is watching. A person with strong character may lose opportunities that require compromise. They may walk away from advantages others accept. In the short term, this can feel like falling behind. Proverbs acknowledges this tension but insists on a deeper truth. What is gained quickly through compromise is often lost quietly through erosion. Integrity keeps your inner world aligned. When actions and values match, decision-making becomes clearer. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop justifying behavior you don't respect. So that internal clarity reduces stress more effectively than any external reward. Character also protects relationships. Trust, once broken, is difficult to restore. A single dishonest decision can undo years of credibility. Proverbs understands that reputation is fragile, not because people are harsh, but because consistency matters. People trust patterns, not promises. In professional life, this principle is often misunderstood. Many believe success requires bending rules, exaggerating ability, or sacrificing ethics for advancement. Proverbs offers a quieter form of ambition. It teaches that slow credibility outlasts fast visibility. People may rise quickly through manipulation, but they rarely stay grounded. Anxiety follows them because exposure always feels close. Character-based success may take longer, but it rests on stability. And it does not require constant image management. It does not collapse when scrutiny arrives. Over time, this stability becomes an influence. Proverbs also address personal desires. Not every temptation involves money or power. Some involve comfort, avoiding difficult conversations, escaping responsibility, choosing pleasure over discipline. These choices may not seem immoral, but they still shape character. Wisdom recognizes that character is built not only by what you do, but by what you consistently avoid. Choosing character often means choosing discomfort now to avoid regret later. This applies strongly to moments when no one is watching. Proverbs places enormous weight on private decisions. Because private actions reveal true values, public behavior is often curated. Private behavior is honest. The wisdom grows when integrity is practiced consistently, not occasionally. Character also shapes self-respect. People who repeatedly compromise feel it internally. Even if no consequences appear externally, confidence erodes. Self-trust weakens. Over time, people begin doubting their own judgment. Proverbs treats this internal cost as serious. A divided self is unstable. In contrast, choosing character strengthens identity. You know where you stand. You know your limits. You know what you will and will not trade. This clarity reduces indecision. It simplifies choices. Life becomes less chaotic when standards are clear. Proverbs does not suggest that choosing a character makes life easy. It often makes it harder in the moment. Saying no when yes would benefit you. Telling the truth when silence would protect you. Doing what is right when no reward is guaranteed. Wisdom does not deny the cost. It argues that the alternative costs more. Short-term gain is temporary by definition. Character compounds. Over time, people who choose character experience a different kind of reward. Not applause, but peace. Not constant excitement, but steadiness. They sleep better. They trust themselves. They move through life without the constant fear of being exposed or undone by their own choices. This is not about moral perfection. Everyone fails. Everyone compromises at times. Proverbs points toward direction, not flawlessness. The wise person notices when they drift and corrects course early. They do not normalize behavior that conflicts with their values. Choosing character is choosing alignment. Alignment between who you are in private and who you present in public. Alignment between your long-term vision and your daily decisions. When that alignment exists, life may still be challenging, but it becomes coherent. Proverbs reminds us that what you gain at the expense of character eventually demands repayment. What you build with character creates a foundation that holds under pressure. In the end, wisdom does not ask how much you accumulated, but who you became while accumulating it. Choosing character over short-term gain is not a sacrifice. It is an investment in a life that does not collapse when tested. Chapter 6. The people you walk with shape who you become. One of the most honest and uncomfortable truths Proverbs teaches is that no one becomes wise alone. Characters do not develop in isolation. Values are not formed in a vacuum. The people you allow close to you, those you listen to, learn from, and spend time with, quietly shape your thinking, your behavior, and ultimately your direction in life. Whether you are aware of it or not, influence is always at work. Many people believe they are independent thinkers, unaffected by those around them. Proverbs challenges this assumption directly. It does not suggest that you instantly become like the people you associate with. Instead, it reveals something more subtle and more dangerous. You slowly absorb their attitudes, normalize their habits, and adopt their standards. This process happens quietly, without announcement, until one day you realize you are no longer the person you intended to be. Influence works through exposure, not force. The people you walk with shape what feels acceptable. They shape what feels possible. They shape how you respond to stress, success, failure, and temptation. Over time, their values become familiar, and familiarity becomes comfort. Proverbs warns that comfort is often mistaken for safety. Wise relationships sharpen judgment. Foolish ones dull it. This does not mean cutting yourself off from everyone who struggles or thinks differently. Proverbs is not about superiority. It is about direction. It asks a simple question: are the people closest to you pulling you toward wisdom or pulling you toward impulsiveness, cynicism, and short-term thinking? You can observe this principle clearly in everyday life. Spend time with people who complain constantly, and negativity becomes normal. Spend time with people who avoid responsibility, and accountability feels optional. Spend time with people who lack self-control, and restraint begins to feel unnecessary. These shifts happen gradually. Rarely does someone wake up and decide to lower their standards. They adjust slowly, one compromise at a time. Proverbs emphasizes that the wise choose their companions carefully, not because they are judgmental, but because they are realistic. They understand that willpower alone is fragile. Environment often wins. The same truth applies in the opposite direction. When you surround yourself with people who value discipline, honesty, patience, and growth, those qualities become reinforced. Good habits feel normal. Wise decisions feel supported. Accountability feels constructive rather than threatening. Over time, you rise to the level of your environment. This is why Proverbs treats relationships as a strategic choice, not just an emotional one. Many people remain in unhealthy environments out of loyalty, familiarity, or fear of change. Proverbs does not dismiss these feelings. It simply warns of the cost. Loyalty that requires self-betrayal is not wisdom. Familiarity that erodes character is not safety. Avoiding discomfort today often creates deeper pain tomorrow. Choosing better influences does not always mean dramatic exits. Sometimes it means creating distance. Sometimes it means setting boundaries. Sometimes it means limiting exposure to conversations that normalize behaviors you're trying to outgrow. God's wisdom does not require cruelty. It requires clarity. The people you walk with also shape your self-perception. If you are constantly around those who dismiss effort, ambition feels foolish. If you are surrounded by those who mock discipline, consistency feels rigid. Proverbs understands that ridicule is a powerful social force. People often abandon growth not because they lack desire, but because they want to belong. Belonging is a deep human need. Wisdom does not deny it, it redirects it. The wise person chooses belonging that strengthens rather than weakens them. They may have fewer companions, but their influence is stronger. Proverbs suggests that quality outweighs quantity. A small circle that reinforces wisdom is more valuable than a large crowd that dilutes it. This principle extends beyond friendships. It includes mentors, leaders, media, and even the voices you allow into your mind regularly. What you listen to repeatedly becomes familiar. Familiar becomes acceptable. Acceptable becomes influential. Proverbs, long before modern psychology, recognizes the power of repeated exposure. The influence you consume shapes the choices you make. This is why wisdom involves intentional selection. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not every voice deserves equal weight. Proverbs encourages discernment, not isolation. The wise person remains open, but not unguarded. It is also important to recognize your role in this dynamic. You are shaping others just as they are shaping you. Your presence affects the standards of the group. Wisdom asks you to consider not only who influences you, but who you are influencing. Are you reinforcing wisdom or enabling dysfunction? Are you encouraging growth or normalizing stagnation? Healthy relationships involve mutual elevation. They do not require perfection, but they encourage accountability. Proverbs values this kind of relationship deeply. It sees correction as care, not attack. It sees honest feedback as protection, not rejection. Walking with wise people often feels uncomfortable at first. Your excuses are challenged, your blind spots are exposed, your habits are questioned. This discomfort is not a sign of harm, it is a sign of growth. Proverbs teaches that wounds from a friend can be faithful because they prevent deeper damage later. The opposite environment feels easier. It rarely challenges, it rarely corrects. It offers comfort without direction. Over time, this comfort becomes stagnation. Choosing who you walk with is one of the most powerful decisions you make, because it shapes so many other decisions automatically. It influences what you tolerate, what you pursue, and what you avoid. Proverbs treats this choice as foundational because it understands how deeply relational humans are. If you want to change your life, examine your environment. Look honestly at who you spend time with, who you listen to, and who you allow to influence your thinking. This is not about blame. It is about responsibility. You do not need to abandon people to grow, but you do need to be intentional about influence. Growth requires space. Wisdom requires reinforcement. Character requires alignment. The people you walk with will not determine your future overnight, but over time, they will shape it more than motivation, intelligence, or intention ever could. Choose wisely, because you will eventually become comfortable with what surrounds you. Chapter 7. Patience builds. What speed destroys. The modern world worships speed. Faster results, faster success, faster answers, faster progress. From the moment we wake up, everything around us pushes urgency. If something takes time, it feels broken. If progress is slow, it feels like failure. Proverbs stands in direct opposition to this mindset. It teaches a truth that feels uncomfortable in a rushed world. Patience is not weakness, and slowness is not stagnation. In many areas of life, patience is the very thing that protects what matters most. Patience is often misunderstood. People associate it with passivity, hesitation, or lack of ambition. Proverbs defines patience differently. Patience is strength under control. It is the ability to wait without becoming careless, reactive, or resentful. It is the discipline to allow time to do its work without forcing outcomes prematurely. Speed feels powerful because it creates the illusion of control. Acting quickly makes us feel decisive. Responding immediately makes us feel strong. But speed often bypasses wisdom. It skips reflection. It ignores consequences. Proverbs repeatedly warns that haste leads to error, not because movement is bad, but because unexamined movement is dangerous. Many of life's biggest regrets are the result of impatience. Words spoken too quickly, commitments made too early, decisions rushed under pressure. These moments rarely feel reckless at the time. They feel urgent, necessary, justified. Patience reveals itself not before the moment, but after the damage is done. Patience protects judgment. In relationships, impatience creates unnecessary fractures. Demanding immediate understanding, forcing emotional resolution before clarity exists, expecting growth without allowing time for change. Proverbs understands that trust, respect, and intimacy are built slowly. When rushed, they become fragile. When pressured, they break. Patient people listen longer. They allow silence. They let emotions settle before drawing conclusions. This does not mean avoiding hard conversations. It means choosing the right timing. Wisdom knows that truth delivered too early can wound instead of heal. Patience also governs ambition. Desire for progress is natural. Proverbs does not condemn ambition. It cautions against impatience that sacrifices foundation for speed. Building something meaningful requires repetition, failure, correction, and endurance. These processes cannot be skipped. When they are, cracks form beneath the surface. Many people rush growth because they fear falling behind. Proverbs offers a different perspective. It teaches that the race is not against others. It is against impulsiveness, pride, and discouragement. Slow progress in the right direction is safer than fast movement toward instability. Patience strengthens emotional regulation. When patience is absent, emotions dictate behavior. Frustration demands expression. Anxiety demands action. Desire demands satisfaction. Patience interrupts this cycle. It creates a pause between feeling and acting. In that pause, wisdom has room to speak. This pause is where many people struggle. Waiting feels uncomfortable. Uncertainty feels threatening. Silence feels awkward. Proverbs recognizes this discomfort but insists that enduring it is essential. Those who cannot wait often act in ways they later regret. Patience is not inactivity. It is controlled activity. It is knowing when to move and when to wait. It is resisting the urge to force clarity before it exists. It is trusting that understanding often arrives after endurance, not before. Financial decisions illustrate this clearly. Impatience leads to risky choices, unnecessary debt, and emotional spending. Patience builds stability. It allows resources to accumulate. It prioritizes sustainability over appearance. Proverbs consistently praises those who grow steadily rather than those who seek quick gain. The same is true in personal growth. People often want instant transformation, immediate confidence, rapid healing. Proverbs teaches that real change happens gradually. Habits are rewired slowly. The character strengthens through repeated choices. Patience keeps people consistent when results are not visible yet. Without patience, discouragement takes over. When effort does not produce immediate reward, impatience interprets this as failure. Proverbs corrects this thinking. It teaches that waiting is not wasted time when direction is right. Seeds grow underground before they break the surface. Patience also guards against comparison. In a fast-paced world, seeing others advance quickly creates pressure. Proverbs reminds us that appearances are deceptive. Fast growth often hides weak roots. Patient growth builds depth. What takes longer to build often lasts longer when tested. In conflict, patience prevents escalation. Immediate reactions intensify tension. Delayed responses allow perspective. Proverbs praises those who are slow to anger because they avoid unnecessary damage. Anger fueled by impatience often overshoots the problem it intends to solve. Patience does not ignore injustice or difficulty. It chooses the most effective response instead of the fastest one. Wisdom understands that some battles are won by endurance, not intensity. Over time, patience reshapes character. It builds resilience. It strengthens trust in the process. It reduces the fear of uncertainty. Patient people develop a steadiness that others notice. They do not rush emotionally. They do not panic under pressure. They do not chase every opportunity that appears. This steadiness creates confidence. Not loud confidence, but grounded confidence. The kind that does not depend on constant progress or validation. Proverbs values this quality because it anchors life during seasons of delay, confusion, and testing. Patience does not promise comfort. Waiting can be frustrating. Progress can feel invisible, but impatience promises something worse. Damage that cannot easily be undone. Proverbs presents patience as a form of protection. Protection from self-sabotage. Protection from unnecessary loss. Protection from choices made before wisdom arrives. Life unfolds in seasons. Some seasons demand action, others demand waiting. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Patience teaches discernment. It teaches when to move forward and when to remain steady. In the end, patience builds what speed destroys. Relationships deepen, character strengthens, judgment sharpens. Progress stabilizes. What is built patiently may take longer to see, but it stands stronger when storms come. Patience is not about moving slowly. It is about moving wisely. Chapter 8. A wise life is built, not discovered. Many people spend their lives searching for clarity as if it were a hidden destination. They believe that one day, with enough insight, experience, or motivation, life will suddenly make sense. Decisions will feel easier. Doubt will disappear. Direction will become obvious. Proverbs quietly dismantles this illusion. Wisdom, it teaches, is not discovered in a single moment. It is built slowly, through repeated choices, practiced values, and lived discipline. A wise life is not the result of a breakthrough. It is the result of construction. This distinction matters because it changes how you approach growth. When people believe wisdom is something to be found, they wait. They look for signs. They search for certainty before acting. When wisdom is understood as something built, responsibility shifts inward. Progress no longer depends on perfect clarity. It depends on consistent alignment between values and behavior. Proverbs does not promise sudden transformation. It promises stability over time. A built life is intentional. It is shaped by decisions made daily, often when no one is watching. These decisions may feel small, but they compound. How you speak, how you respond under pressure, how you manage time, how you treat people, how you handle temptation. Wisdom lives in these ordinary moments, not in dramatic gestures. This is why Proverbs focuses so heavily on patterns. Not isolated actions, but repeated behaviors. A single wise decision does not make a wise person. A single failure does not define a foolish one. Direction matters more than moments. A wise life